I believe that Quant could be so huge during this bull run in terms of its narrative, hypothetically, of course. And you may be thinking, okay, why? And not only is the reason why because I hypothetically see Quant going to the price of $5,000 during this bull run, but I think we're beginning to see signs of Quant being focused on markets that really haven't gained that massive attention yet, but very well could have massive attention during this bull run. And what is that? I think it's two different sectors. The first being interoperability, and the second being multi-chain applications. I think these two aspects could be such a huge narrative during this bull run. And even back in October, we saw Quant heading in this right direction. And now, before I get into why, I think interoperability and multi-chain applications is fantastic, let's take a look at this first. Again, back in October, Quant launches over-ledger pipe dream integrations for custom workflows. Now, you may be thinking, okay, this is a little bit caca, man. But you know what? I think this is very special because it does state how available on the Pipedream App Store, the Overledger integration allows developers to interact with multiple blockchain networks and simplifies blockchain interoperability to enable multi-chain applications through a single gateway. Now, some people may think, okay, this is just a bunch of random nonsense. But again, I think this is a step in the right direction for Quant in terms of interoperability and multi-chain applications. Now, let's take a look at the first aspect, which is interoperability. Why could this be a big narrative? Because solving, projects that lack interoperability, that right there, I think is super necessary. #Jorge Masvidal. Because if you think about it, there's many blockchains out there, many networks, but for the most part, they can't freely send data and value to each other, meaning that, again, they can't freely interact with one another. And again, the reason why is because for the most part, they are independent of one another. Take a look at a very popular example of this caca situation. Take a look at Bitcoin and Ethereum. They're independent of one another. Quite essentially, they can't freely send data and value to each other, meaning that in a sense, it could be argued that they do lack interoperability. Now, lacking interoperability, again, is a very big problem in my opinion, because just imagine this situation. Let's say I'm using T-Mobile and my friend is using AT&T. But then simply because of the fact that I'm using a different carrier, I can't call him. That, of course, wouldn't be good. Now, of course, that problem doesn't exist in real life. But imagine if it did. Of course, it'd be a big issue. But in the world of blockchains, because it's still up and coming, because it's not that developed yet, of course, this problem does still exist. So I think this right here could be a big narrative because people, they usually latch onto narratives. They don't really care about the adoption or anything like that. Typically, people care about anticipated adoption, and also they care about how massive something could be in the future. And again, interoperability, that right there could be a big narrative that people focus on during this bull run. And I think Quant, man, it could very well be one of the major players leading the race, so to speak, when it comes to that department. Not to mention, we take a look at another aspect, which I did mention, and that is multi-chain applications. Now, you may be thinking, okay, who cares about a multi-chain application? Now, a multi-chain application is so revolutionary because what it does is that it allows users and also enterprises, whatever the case may be, to build applications that doesn't only just, let's say, gets built on top of one blockchain, but instead gets built on top of multiple blockchains. So you got to think about that. That's amazing because let's say someone wants to make, an application for bratwurst extenders. Let's say for decentralizing the sale of used bratwurst extenders, leave the Captain Edition, let's say, whatever the case may be, right? But then let's say they want this application to have amazing speed, but at the same time have amazing security. Now, what could they do? Let's say they use the Overledger OS, which, by the way, is one of the two things that makes up the Quant network. But before I get into that, let's say, again, someone wants to build this app. They can take advantage of the speed of the Stellar blockchain, which is lightning fast, but then maybe it's not really widely known for its security. So what is a way to supplement that? That's by using Bitcoin. Because, of course, Bitcoin proof of work, the security is top notch, in my opinion. So, again, this app, for decentralizing the sale of used bratwurst extenders, leave the Captain Edition, this application could, let's say, be built on top of the Stellar blockchain, but also the Bitcoin blockchain. This is how amazing and revolutionary the Overledger OS is. And that, again, is how revolutionary a multi-chain application is, just generally speaking. And, of course, again, the Overledger OS does make part of the Quant network, so to speak. So this right here is a total game changer in my opinion. So when you think about it, isn't Quant revolutionary? I mean, people like to say that it's complete caca and all this type of stuff, but come on, man. this is how amazing Quant is. You also even take a look at QRC 721, Quant's very own NFT standard. The amazing thing about it is that it's highly interoperable, right? Allegedly speaking. And people like that because I think the hype for NFTs is going to come back in again. After all, according to Grandview Research, the NFT market is predicted to be worth over $200 billion by 2030. So that's pretty massive. And you combine the interoperability aspect, this right here, I think, is a total game changer when it comes to Quant. Not to mention, people like to say that Quant is a little bit caca because not many people want to buy it and all this type of stuff. Well, my argument is this. Quant is actually very rare. Maximum supply is around 14.6 to around 14.8 million. Come on, man. Take a look at something like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is 21 million. So when you think about that, isn't Quant way more rare than Bitcoin? People like to say that, okay, Bitcoin, man, there's 21 million. Yeah, that's the max supply, but there's so many Bitcoin lost because they think that, okay, back then, there's a bunch of people who probably held Bitcoin, probably thought it was going to be worth complete caca in the future, just forgot about their password or whatever and just left it. And then now they're like, okay, where's the Bitcoin? Like that one story, do you know that one person, right, who had their friend or partner or whatever throw away their hard drive and then it had like a bunch of Bitcoin? I think the person was in the UK and then they're trying to now find it through the dumpster or whatever, or landfill, allegedly at least. Yeah, there's a lot of stories like that. But I think that even despite that, I highly doubt that even 5 million Bitcoin is lost. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a good amount that's lost, but I don't think there's like 5 million hypothetically. But even if, let's say, there is 5 million Bitcoin lost for whatever reason, that still wouldn't even be the maximum supply of Quant. So you got to imagine just how rare Quant is. Now, of course, something being rare, but then let's say no one wants it, is pretty much pointless. But when it comes to Quant, again, when I consider the narratives that it's focused on and how just massive they could be moving forward, and also especially during this bull run, I think Quant, relatively speaking, is actually very rare for what it is. Now, it hasn't really showcased that because we haven't seen Quant even go to the price of $500 yet, at least during this bull run. But even still, despite that, I think better days are ahead because I think that eventually it's going to go up, hypothetically, because as the old saying goes, a high tide raises all ships. Keep in mind that Bitcoin, it's heading in a positive direction. I get it. It's struggling around $100,000, but you know what? I think better days are ahead. Now, personally, I wouldn't want to acquire any Bitcoin, but of course, a lot of altcoins do depend on it. So I think this right here does matter. And keep in mind, even according to Charles Hoskinson, in the next 1 or 2 years, he said that he could very well see Bitcoin either reaching the price of $250,000 all the way up to $500,000. Again, 1 or 2 years from around November. So you could only imagine that. This is how massive this bull run could be. Now, Quant at the price of $5,000 may seem like this crazy nonsense pipe dream, but if it were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $60 billion, still over $40 billion less than BNB's all-time high market cap. And BNB, let's face it, is complete caca compared to this, in my opinion. Now, I get it, $5,000 is around a 43x from here. It's not the best upside, but Quant is actually a pretty massive project. So let's say hypothetically doing an additional 43x from here, it doesn't seem so bad, and I think better days are ahead. Keep in mind, I'm not looking for a microcap, but I'm not looking for a complete dinosaur. So what is a good balance in between? That's something like Quant, in my opinion. And again, I think in around a year from right now, I think better days are ahead. And I think that during this bull run, especially once it's at 5th gear, because I still think we're in 2nd gear, I think that it's going to take quite a while, or should I say take some time to go to 3rd and 4th and 5th gear. But when it does, Quant at the price of $5,000, I don't see why not. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, and I think it could be such a huge narrative during this bull run, and I really can't wait. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's only the captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.